Okay, the next presentation, Sam Rando, Building Capacity, Aboriginal People and Camel Management. Sam's from the Central Land Council. Over to you.
Thank you. The title slide should probably read Building Capacity, Aboriginal People and Camel Management in the Northern Territory. And I was slightly peeved this morning by my Mardu and Spinifex colleagues in their presentations because they've largely stolen my thunder. But in another sense, it's reassuring that the issues traditional owners have confronted over the last 5 or 6 years and the pathways they've trodden in trying to reach a place that they're comfortable with and find solutions to the feral camel problems are pretty well the same over the border in WA as what we have been through in the Northern Territory. So, where's Pete? Thanks, but no thanks, Pete, or the two Peters. As a way of background, Central Land Council, people may not know about our organisation. It's created under the Aboriginal Land Rights Act, Northern Territory, way back in 1976. The area that we operate within stretches in the north from the Victoria River District down across to the Barkly, and then it's bound by the Queensland, South Australia and WA borders. For the first 20 or 25 years of the organisation's life, a lot of effort was focused on getting land back for traditional owners, so land rights. And by any measure, you'd have to say the organisation's been quite successful. 417,000 square kilometres is now collectively owned Aboriginal freehold land. That's more than half of the land area of the Northern Territory portion of Central Australia. So it's only in relatively recent years that the organisation has become far more focused on helping traditional owners look after that land now that they have it back. As chance may have it, the areas of highest camel densities closely align with Aboriginal freehold land. The far southwest corner, so-called Surveyor General's corner or the Tri-State corner, Peterman Land Trust on our side of the border, Nunandara lands and APY lands, all Aboriginal land. And in the southeast, on the other side of the map, the northern half of the Simpson Desert is also Aboriginal freehold land. The CLC became concerned about feral camel matters well and truly before the AFCMP. In 2008, we secured funding through the Indigenous Land Corporation to employ a feral animal education officer who was solely focused, she started the following year, solely focused on camels and educating Aboriginal people about the impacts associated with camels and about finding solutions to the camel problem. At that stage, there is very little awareness of the environmental impact of camels. Some important sacred sites that were waterholes near, say, Docker River had been fenced, and people thought, well, that camel problem's been dealt with. We've fenced those 3 or 4 waterholes, there's no more problem. The trouble was that many people's estates are very, very remote and very few Aboriginal people have reliable 4-wheel drive. So a lot of people's estates hadn't been visited for many years and in some instances many decades. So people weren't aware of the condition of their land. They weren't aware that there was competition between feral camels and game species and that camels were impacting on important bush tucker plants, bush resources, medicinal plants. What they were aware about were the increasing number of collisions of car accidents involving camels, and they included fatalities. Many people told me they were scared to go out bush, and people live for going out bush, going hunting, collecting bush tucker. They were scared to go out bush because of the camels at night. And they were also very concerned about camels invading communities. Towards the end of that year, 1,000 camels at any one time were to be found in Docker River, and we, through the help of the NT government, shot 3,000 camels around Docker in 3 days. So the impacts were beginning to build, and people's realisation that something was wrong was becoming very apparent. Countering that, and both in the Spinifex and Mardu presentations, this has already been talked about, but feral camels were not viewed, and still in many ways are not viewed as different to native animals. They're seen as recent arrivals, but they are treated just the same way. I suppose similarly, animals that have become nationally or locally extinct, some people still believe they've just moved on. They've moved over the border into WA and they're over there, they're fine. As has already been mentioned today, a very strong cultural aversion to shoot to waste. When you're living in a desert environment where survival is a daily proposition, you're not wasteful. Unlike us in the West, where we throw things out all the time, in the desert, traditionally, you're not wasteful. So shooting something without, or killing something without having an end use for it, goes totally against people's culture. I was reminded of this very early on, about 20 years ago when I first started working in the Territory. I was doing a fauna survey, and there was a boom of house mice, a big plague, and every Elliott trap had a house mouse in it. So we were measuring, weighing, sexing them, and then knocking them on the corner of the table to kill them and throwing them away. And I was told in no uncertain terms that this was just not acceptable. The more recent religious connections are alive and well, so camels and donkeys. The three wise men, Jesus, the donkeys. That association is very strong. Lutheran influence in many, not just Lutheran, but very strong Christian influences these days. And people are also reluctant to kill those animals because of the Bible connections. And Aboriginal people's approach to their worldview is dominated by Chukapa, as people have already mentioned, and that's totally at odds with the evidence-based Western scientific approach to managing natural resources. So these were some of the issues that people were, and us in the land management section of CLC, were confronted with when we started to engage on camels. So since 2009, the aim has been to assist traditional owners make more informed decisions about how they want to manage camels on their land, and at the same time to build the skills amongst Aboriginal people, community residents, Aboriginal ranger groups, of which we have 10, to actually manage camels at a local level. So building people's capacity with regards to making informed decisions. At the core of our program was getting people back out on country. We conducted umpteen field trips, and when I say field trip, it's not just going down the road to Tinbidbilla. They can be major undertakings of a week or 10 days. No roads, many flat tyres. We did umpteen trips, taking people out to their estates so that they could see firsthand. We didn't have to tell them about the damage that was going on. They could see firsthand what was going on. They could put two and two together, come to their own decisions themselves. We had innumerable meetings with families and individuals, I'd say in the hundreds, and we developed and used a range of novel educational tools. Now Peter C., where is he? He claims that we stole the bags of rice idea from him, but I beg to differ. That bags of rice, photoshopped posters showing thousands of camels and the way they might multiply. The use of motion sensor cameras and videos to show people what was going on at their waterholes and sacred sites. That consultation program culminated in about 30 community meetings, full-on, whole-of-community meetings. And the change in attitudes, and I largely put it down to our education officer, who was totally committed, Jude Pritchard, some people might know her, wonderful operator, very obsessed individual. Although in any group in society there's going to be a range of views, in a general sense the views amongst Aboriginal people in the NT was that feral camels were no longer a benign animal, but they were a pest, and were telling us in no uncertain terms, get rid of them. Traditional owners granted consent through those 30 community meetings for camel management across the vast majority of Aboriginal freehold land where camels were a big problem. So those black areas, Aboriginal people granted consent, and in most cases for the complete range of management options that we had available to us. And these options included aerial culling, ground-based culling, commercial harvest, development of water points as a tool in managing camels, mustering and trapping, and the water monitoring that Jane's just spoken about. coming out of those 30 maps and a large number of follow-up field trips with anthropologists and helicopters and senior people, cull maps were produced for every land trust where there were high numbers of camels. They included, as the other Aboriginal organisations have done the same, they included no-go areas, no-shoot areas. These included around communities, outstations, sacred sites, waterholes, watercourses, roads, popular hunting or bush tucker gathering areas. Over the last few years, 23, actually 24 now I think, Glenn, with last week's Haas Bluff cull. So 24 culls have occurred on Aboriginal land, and some 64,000 camels have been removed from Aboriginal land alone in the Northern Territory. Oh God, okay, I'll hurry up. Firearms training, we've heard about that. We did that with our rangers as well. Ground-based culling, local rangers are out bush every other day, and they can now shoot camels if and when they see them. That's aligned with butchery. We're trying to encourage the use of camel meat in communities. We installed water points at communities, outstations near natural waters, both as to divert the attention of camels from those natural waters or community waters to the boars, acting as decoys, and also as hub points for mustering and trapping. I might go straight on to the mustering and trapping because we undertook a variety of demonstration musters, and we'll let.
We got two special spring out here, and all the camels spoiling it. And we used to drink out of that spring.
Like in the countryside, camel go anywhere, they make a lot of mess. They damage fence, everything. Trees, everything they're damaging.
A camel is spoiling the country, you know. That's why, even for animals, birds, for water, you know, water, they're spoiling water and all that.
There's a big number. We've got a lot of Aboriginal sacred sites and traditional places, and the camels are pretty much destroying a lot of the places and drinking a lot of the spring waters and breaking a lot of the natural environment around here.
We've lost a number of plants that are really endangered due to camels, and we have a very sad incident of lots and lots of car accidents with camels, including serious injury and fatality. This is about putting in place camel management on Aboriginal land trusts for Central Land Council. We're working here with Papunya Rangers, Anangulurchuku Rangers, and we will be getting exercises, skills in mustering camels, managing them in the yard, humane handling, welfare of animals.
It's a work, you know. They should all be in the work to catching camel or sending them away or whatever, you know, like this, cleaning the place up.
We just put up this portable yard to keep the camel numbers down, and we got two of these wings, so we can bring him out with a chopper, put him in through here, through the gate, and leave it out there for a couple of days.
There's plenty more out there, and it's just we've got to keep going until the job's done. It's going to take years and years, but we're not going to stop, you know. Generations of our kids are going to be still going at this when we're gone, so it's a matter of teaching our generation, the younger generation, these skills what we have and learnt off our families and ancestors, and keep it going.
Look, I'll just conclude by saying that the AFCMP has assisted traditional owners of the Northern Territory and certainly assisted in improving the condition of their land through helping to change traditional owner perceptions and their attitudes towards camel management by resulting in consent for large parts of Aboriginal freehold land that, although that consent can be annulled, I suppose, that's highly unlikely to happen. People are happy with the way things are going. Building the capacity of Indigenous ranger groups to manage camels at a local level on an ongoing basis. Removing a large number of camels, obviously. Protecting important cultural and environmental sites. And it's also helped in developing a very strong partnership between the CLC and the NT government, particularly Glenn, Kim, Rossi, Donna, the shooting team. And the last couple of years, that partnership has been invaluable and seamless, and it's been like a clockwork mechanism just running beautifully. So in the NT, I'll conclude just by saying that although we've come a long way in 5 years, there's a hell of a long way to go, and it would be naive to think that just local management from local ranger groups by itself was going to suffice from here on in. We are going to need large amounts of money for periodic aerial culls while we build our capacity even further.